Welcome to ePathshala. Today we will be discussing Module 27 of Applied Linguistics. The name of the module is Aspects of Vocabulary. In this module, we'll deal with the nature, structure, acquisition, teaching, and assessment of the knowledge of words in the target language. Language proficiency of a learner will crucially depend on the number of words he or she can understand and use accurately in his speech and writing. So far as the first language of a child is concerned, a large number of words get learned effortlessly without any major conscious interventions. That is, the meaning of new words gets coded in the context. That strategy continues to be used in the case of second or foreign language learning as well. But in case of second or foreign language learning, the time and input available is so finite that explicit teaching of lexical items often becomes obligatory. Even in the case of first languages, lexical learning in a sense continues all through one's life. We get introduced to new words every other day. One of the major problems associated with the understanding of nature of vocabulary is that we do not have a commonly accepted definition for what a word is. In writing, there's a simple definition that most people may agree, that is, items separated by spaces in print are words. In writing, words can be described as an item which is placed in between two spaces. But in the case of real language, that is speech, it is really difficult to define a word. There is a great deal of research devoted to two diametrically opposed positions. And these two positions are words have internal structures like sentences and words have no internal structures. That is, a basic unit of a language is word and not word parts. Now let us see what do they mean when they say words have internal structures like sentences. Let's consider an example. Let's take the word unkind. So what happens here is the formation of the word unkind is in such a way that it has two word parts, that is un and kind. The affix un is attached to the main word kind, and thus we get the word unkind. So another example is of examination. In the word examination, exam is a noun to which we add a suffix to get examine, and examine is a verb to which we add another suffix to get examination, and examination is a noun to which we add another suffix sir, which is a plural marker, and then finally we get the word examinations. Scholars who do not believe in the internal structure of words claim that nothing less than a word exists. So according to them, there is no word parts. It exists as a whole. For a speaker of English, un has no meaning, nor Asian or sir as an examination. According to them, words exist in all their glory as wholes. They are related to other words with which they share some phonetic material and some meaning. The study of lexicon is then the study of words and their relatedness. In this framework, there are no basic or primary words, no roots or stems. There are just words, and over a period of time, a child learns to relate, say, glass to glasses with a simple strategy in which, let's say, X is a noun, singular, and the child in time learns that X plus S is a plural, noun plural. There is another problem concerning defining words. Suppose you use the words walk, walks, walking, walked, walker, walkers. Do you know one word or a family of words that is centered around walk? Consider that walk as a noun and as a verb are implicated here. It has been suggested that a person who knows all these words actually knows only walk, called a lemma. Lemma is a concept which subsumes the family of words associated with walk. For example, let's look into the dictionary entry. The word run, runner, running, all these could be seen in the dictionary, but the main word, the lemma, will be run. In any case, there is substantial merit in claiming that learning of vocabulary is an important component of language learning. If we learn the basic vocabulary, you will be able to function quite efficiently in the target language. Now we will look into the structure of vocabulary. Vocabulary and expression can be classified into formulaic and non-formulaic. A considerable part of any human language is generative, in the sense that if you know a small set consisting of related pairs of words and the strategy that formulates their relationship to each other, you can handle hundreds of more that belonging to that set. On the other hand, a substantial part of any human language is frozen in idioms, proverbs, and day-to-day exchange. There isn't much variation in such words. Such expressions have to be learned and used regularly as such. These would, for example, include expressions like how are you, good morning, you know what I think, have a nice day, tit for tat, etc. The frozen literal expressions such as I think, I suppose, really, you know, etc. help a second language learner to maintain a semblance of fluency that would be impossible otherwise. So such kind of words often act as fillers in the second language learner's speech. In general, such expressions will not form a part of the basic vocabulary list created by scholars for language learning. So basic word lists are largely based on frequency counts and would privilege words like the, a, an, and, is, or, if, not, only, etc. One of the most well-known lists was prepared by Michael West in 1953 as a general service list of English words. As mentioned earlier, basic word lists are largely based on frequency counts. Now a serious problem with frequency counts is, what do we count? Do we count types or tokens? Now let's understand what is a type and a token. For example, consider the following lines from Keats' Ode to the Nightingale. The weariness, the fever, and the fret, here where men sit and hear each other groan. So in these lines, the word count is 60, that we count each word separately and the total word count is 60, and that is there are 16 tokens of words. But in terms of actual word type, only 13 word types are present. Now let's see why is it reduced to 13. So here in the sentence, the weariness, the fever, and the fret, here where men sit and hear each other groan, the word the is repeated thrice and the word and is repeated twice. So the belongs to one word type and it is only counted once. So that is one word type. The belongs to one particular word type. And the word and, the conjunction and, belongs to another word type. You can also examine the vocabulary of a language in terms of variant and invariant words. In English, for example, the set of an invariant word contains prepositions like on, at, in, etc. Conjunctions like and or if, etc. Determiners like a and the. This is always a finite set consisting of small numbers of words. You cannot include more function words into a language, but you can always make or include more content words. So the larger set of variable words consists of verb, nouns, adjective and adverbs. The study of words is really the study of how these words are related to each other. Now we will discuss what is frequency, coverage and availability. Earlier we discussed that a blanket count of frequency of occurrence may not be of much use for the lexical enrichment of language learners. One would much rather spend time on introducing frequently occurring form-like expressions and idioms and on expressions that are traditionally related by collocation. For example, it may not be a good idea to teach, let's say, skylark and daffodils in the same breath, but it may make sense when you say cup and saucer or cool as cucumber at the same time. Now, coverage is another which is important. Consider the word right, R-I-G-H-T, right. It has different meanings in different expressions like turn right, is that right, no you're not right, right angle, right answer. So in all these expressions, the word right has different meanings. Or as Mackey tells us, for the newborns of cow, dog and cat, you could use young ones of those animals, or you could say calf, puppy and kitten, insisting upon their acquisition by the learners. So this is what we mean by coverage. One particular word can have another set of meanings under that word. Now, another important dimension of vocabulary is availability. What kind of words are already available in children? In many cases, we underestimate the lexical knowledge of children. Even in rural settings in India, a child comes up with a storehouse of perhaps over 1,000 or over 100 English words, including cycle, fan, tire, spoon, glass, bus, train, light, switch, pencil, etc. So it may be a good idea to build on this already familiar vocabulary. So you can connect, the teacher can ask the kid to connect words and make another new English word with the already available or already existing vocabulary. Let's say if the kid already knows cycle, then the teacher could ask the child, okay, so how did you come to the school today? And maybe the child can form the new word cycle rickshaw. A number of studies have been done on how to teach vocabulary items to learners. Optimal results are achieved by a combination of incidental and deliberate learning or teaching of vocabulary. So if the mode of teaching or the mode of learning is correct, then the learner can obviously learn a lot of words, a lot of new words. The basic structures and the lexicon are in place by the age of 4, but learning new words continues for a long time. As we mentioned earlier, even in our first language, we tend to learn new words every other day. Mostly the content words are added into the dictionary regularly. Irrespective of whether it is first, second or foreign language vocabulary learning, a meaning-focused input is most useful. It is important to ensure that not more than 2 to 3% of words are new in that particular class. These words could be used repeatedly in various forms throughout the teaching materials. You can enrich vocabulary by asking about synonyms and antonyms in suitable context. Various kinds of fill-in-the-blanks exercises may be used. Flashcards can be used. Finding odd ones out, words associated with each other in a particular domain, word picture matching, etc. are some of the other activities that may be used to learn more vocabularies. The close procedure and its various modified forms may be used very effectively for a variety of purposes such as spelling, focus on content words, focus on function words, etc. Now there's another important question that we have to deal with, which is, how many words should a learner know to be called proficient in a target language? This is not an easy question to answer. The number of words a learner requires to be called proficient in English tends to be large. In fact, an efficient learner of English should know at least 5,000 to 6,000 word families of English. But the same thing may not be true for those languages which have a rich morphology, where a small number of words or templates can be used to create a large number of new words. Consider the words book, writer, school, library, books, scribe, and book dealer. All these words are related at the level of meaning, but the level of form, they hardly show any connections. There is no way of formally relating book to school or scribe. As opposed to this, examine the case of Arabic. Arabic has a set of basic consonantal templates such as k, t, b, and it is rules by which a huge set of predictable words related to this template can be formed. Thus, we have kitab, that is book, katib, scribe, kutub, books, maktab, school, maktaba, library, kutubi, book dealer, etc. If you, for example, know 100 such templates and the associated word formation strategies, you know a large number of words in Arabic. There are other languages which allow you to form a large number of words by word concatenation. In this module, we discussed various aspects of vocabulary. A basic distinction between word is that of being variable or non-variable. Most function words in any language are invariant, and most content words such as nouns and verbs tend to be variable. Some of the important issues associated with vocabulary are those of coverage, frequency, and availability. Though word lists of different types are useful for pedagogical purposes, words including their grammar and meaning are best taught in the context. Assessment of vocabulary, like any other assessment, should simultaneously constitute a learning site. Thank you.